Hey there guys, it's Metro, and today I want to just make another video on Blood Death Knight stuff on the PTR. I know a lot of people are going to ask me about this, so I might as well head it off at the pass and make a video on it real quick. Don't have time to put much effort into this, but I figured might as well get this out before we go to BlizzCon stuff coming up. So a lot of people are going to be reacting to what they see here, but apparently it's not anything to be worried about. Instead, what they're doing is changing Veteran of the Third War to be something for every tank, okay? So it's now going to be, or for, sorry, every Death Knight spec that is. So Frost and Holy now get basically a 10% health buff. And yeah, obviously that's pretty nice for them, right? But it makes it look like Blood is getting a 10%, is getting changed to only 10% extra health from Veteran of the Third War, which would be absolutely absurd. Wouldn't make any sense whatsoever. It would make them the worst tank pretty much without any question. It would definitely make them the lowest health tank, and it would basically nerf every single one of our spells. But have no fear. Apparently this is evidence that that is not happening. Instead, what's happening here, I guess it says value of the 50th or something. I don't know. I don't understand how any of this stuff works. I'm not a math or this kind of guy one way or the other, but I don't know. I'm not sure why it still shows that. This kind of threw me up too because it was like stamina increased by 60% and armor increased by 15%. That's the old value. So I imagine what that's supposed to say is the new value, which is now 10% and blah, 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 whatever else. But I guess what it's saying here is effect number 13, which is, I guess somehow this modifies effect number 1 on that effect. So that's effect number 1 is stamina. So it's improving our stamina by 50%. So basically it's going back to 60% when you're a Blood Death Knight. But everybody else has 10. I don't know. It's complicated, but I guess the answer is that we are not having our health nerfed by 50%. I'm not 100% sure if that's true, but I think most people are seeming to agree that that is what's actually happening. I'll have to get on the PTR to figure it out. Otherwise, there was actually some other Blood Death Knight changes that we definitely want to talk about. Marrowrend was buffed. Yeah, so a buff to our physical damage reduction because it gives armor only, right? So not in any way changing our magic reduction, but kind of giving us more armor. So I don't know how much more armor this is going to give. I assume it's not going to be anywhere near 15% more armor, but this is an ability that should be up 100% of the time. 40 to 50 instead. Now time strength divided by 100. Strength is obviously, also going to be a big reason why you have high armor with Bone Shield or whatever, but I really don't know. But that obviously is a buff. So it's kind of odd that they would buff Marrowrend just after they nerfed the armor. Maybe it makes you kind of think that they're not that worried about Blood's position, but obviously things can still change. And then here's the big one. People are going to probably overreact to this for a long time, but realistically, it's not that big of a nerf, and I'm going to explain to you why. So they changed it from 3% healing to 15%. Okay, so it's 3% of your maximum health every time it deals damage, right? Meaning if you hit one mob, it's 3%. If you hit 2 mobs, it's 6. If you hit 3, it's 9, blah, 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 all the way up to 5. It's 15. Now, it's only ever going to get up to 15. Okay, at first when I read that, I kind of was like, it can only heal you for 15% of your health. But yeah, I don't think that's what it says. So regardless, it's now only going to heal you up to 5 mobs, basically. It was only healing 15% when you're hitting 5 mobs. Anyway, before I used to do now 18% on 6 mobs. Now it still only does 15. So regardless, this is only a nerf if you're fighting 6+ mobs. Now that happens in Mythic Plus all the time, I'm sure. But when are those times that dangerous that you need that extra 3% health? It may happen, obviously, and it probably did happen all the time on very serious keys. That 10-second window of Bone Storm up, you're fighting 10 mobs, you're pretty much unkillable, I would have to say. You know what I mean? Getting a bit ridiculous there if you're healing that much for 10 seconds. But ask yourself this question. Honestly, if you're outraged by this or upset, ask yourself this question. How many times do you consciously fight more than 6, like more than 5 mobs, 6 or more, and you definitely need Bone Storm to survive? Now, if the answer is, whatever, however many times, how much less do you think Bone Storm is going to do in this situation? Because for me, when we're healing in that situation, I feel like a lot of it is still overhealing. Even though it's healing me for so much and, the healer is blah, 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 doing whatever, he's still healing me. He sees this many mobs, and even as a Blood Death Knight, he knows I'm going to take a lot of damage. Even if I could heal it up quickly, realistically, unless you're doing something incredibly good and your healer knows exactly where you're at all times, he's not going to know that I'm going to be able to heal myself for that much. So one way or the other, we're doing some overhealing, especially if you're only fighting 6 mobs. Now, if you're fighting like 10+, there are packs like that aren't just fodder plus something else. then yeah, it's a nerf for sure. And I think this is the right choice, though, regardless. The reason I'm talking about this so heavily is because it's this instead of something else. This is probably the mildest nerf they could have done to this spell. This spell was definitely overpowered. If you saw in Legion, it used to be 2%. Almost nobody ever took it, but that was because Purgatory and either that or Blood Mirror was so much stronger in their respective situations. So what they could have nerfed instead was the damage dealt, all right? 15% could have went down to like 5% of attack power. That's probably what they should have did, realistically. But whatever. They could have also nerfed it to 2%, back to 2%, right? Or maybe even 1.5%. That would have been a huge nerf. And they also could have made it, whatever, you can't tell by the thing, but they could have also made it a 2-minute cooldown. And all of those would have been way bigger nerfs because it would have prevented you from using it the way you want to use it, have as much DPS from it, using it on a single target, on smaller targets every minute. These things would have changed heavily if they did any of these nerfs, and they didn't. Okay, all they did was make it so we're not unkillable when we're fighting large, really, really large packs. 5 mobs is still a pretty large pack in terms of Mythic Plus, especially with certain affixes. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. I don't think that's a problem. Apparently, they're also changing... I'm not really sure what's going on with Last Dance. I don't know exactly what's happening, but apparently Last Dance now makes the cooldown and duration of your dancing rune weapon reduced by 50%. So that's like a terrible talent now. I guess that's going to affect PvP. I don't really PvP, but I do use Last Dance out in the world. But whatever, I just won't take the spell. I don't need it every minute or whatever. Like, yeah, it changes it to a minute, but it's only 4 seconds. Doesn't really help me. So regardless, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to give my thoughts on this because I know a lot of people are going to ask, and I'm going to be really busy the next couple days. So realistically, unless we've all miscalculated what this means, this is not actually going to be a 50% nerf to stamina for Blood Death Knight. It is only a 10% buff to Frosted and Holy's health. And because of this up here, we're going to always still have 60% stamina. That's also not new, though. There was a guy in my Discord the other day saying, like, he was really excited that Blood DK was getting a 60% stamina buff. That's been in the game the whole time. That is not a new thing with the patch. But the Bone Storm nerf might hurt you. But again, the Marrow End buff, I don't know how big that's going to be, but that seems like a pretty good thing in general. So anyway, thanks for watching. If you guys have any comments or questions, I'm sure you will. Leave them down below. I'll try my best to answer them. But yeah, so far, Blood DK has been pretty mild, even though it's kind of like gut-wrenching. Feels like you just got punched in the stomach. I guess it's not actually the nerf that it seems like it is. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.